On today's show, who are the biggest winners and losers from the NBA draft lottery? What are some potential draft night scenarios to be on the lookout for? Is there a possibility that any of Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, or Amen Thompson could fall outside of that top four? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Next game, how about Jimmy Butler to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? Or how about Jason Tatum to have less than 6.5 assists? Or what about Jamal Murray to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is PrizePicks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. And right now, every day of the NBA playoffs and the finals, one PrizePicks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. But you have to download the app to find out how. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is Richard Stayman, one of the hosts of Locked On NBA, a big board you can track down wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. Just search Locked On NBA, big board. And Richard, we had the fateful NBA draft lottery take place Tuesday night last week. The fate of many of the tanking teams in the NBA, if you will, decided on that evening. For better or for worse, let's start with the biggest winners. There's a very clear-cut one winner from draft lottery night, but let's start with the biggest winners overall from draft lottery night.
Yeah, obviously the San Antonio Spurs, they just got a franchise-changing talent. I would say the Portland Trail Blazers, though, are the other clear winner because they were slotted at the 5th pick, which is really where the draft seems to start. There's 4 consensus guys: Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson. After that, I don't think you can find 5 GMs in a row that have the same number 5 prospect. So it's really wide open from there. They got out of that hole, and now they have the clear leftovers of Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson, whichever Charlotte decides not to do, or they could trade it and create some more assets, use it to get more immediate help. They have a lot of avenues they can go down.
And in your eyes, the biggest losers from lottery night?
Yeah, there's no question it's anyone other than the Detroit Pistons.
It's got to be really tough for them to fall all the way down to pick number 5 in what is being regarded as a, after Wemby, you've got the next 3 kind of consensus guys, and you are right there at the cusp of could have had any one of those 3 guys fall to you, and now you're just on the outside looking in if you're Detroit.
Yeah, the only good thing that comes of it, and it's still not a good thing because there was an easy positive way out, is now they don't have to worry about, potentially deciding, do we want Scoot Henderson with our already 2 of our top 5 guards we've drafted in the last 2 years? Now they don't have that problem, but also they could have just traded out of it and gotten more assets, which they kind of need right now. So that was all in all a loss for them. The good news is Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks, Kim Whitmore, those are the 3, Sar Thompson, really 4 guys that everyone looks at. All of those could have big implications on the future of the Pistons.
I'm really surprised you didn't classify the Mavs as one of the lottery winners, seeing as how they kept their pick. You might have to change your Twitter handle, man.
True. I think I was too focused at the top of the draft there.
Okay, no worry. Well, lottery is 1 through 14 here, so we'll count.
True.
We'll show the Mavericks a little bit of love. I might lose some points with my Rockets fans for saying that line out loud. Somebody's going to clip that up a little bit later on. You mentioned the Blazers there. at pick number 3. And to me, they seem like the team with maybe the most interesting choice to make come draft night, right? Do they keep the pick and take somebody? Do they trade that pick out? In your eyes, which team or teams have the most interesting choice to make given where their pick ultimately landed, either between now and lottery night or just on lottery night itself? Or sorry, draft night, I should say.
Yeah, I think that really the two teams, they're going to open the floodgates to the rest of the night. I think it's the two, right? It's Detroit at 5 because they kick off the real next portion of the draft. That we know the top 4 is likely going to be the same 4 we've anticipated, but Detroit kicks it off, and then just consequentially Orlando right after, right? They also have another decision to make though too, is they have a pretty full roster of young players. I think they're ultimately going to consolidate, but do they want to take on 2 rookie contracts that high? They want to be in the playoffs next year. They were already close to the play-in, going from what they did last year, having the number 1 pick, to the play-in almost. They want to be able to compete, and they might be better off only taking 1 player, whether it's their decision really is, do we want to trade up? Do we want to just trade one of the picks and get a positive asset and then pick from there? How do they go? They've got a lot of different options they can explore.
Is there a world where Scoot Henderson somehow falls to the Rockets at 4?
Very wishful thinking there, Jackson. No. There's been no red flags about the kid. The biggest red flag you could say is in a G League where defense has the reputation of being optional. He didn't try that hard on defense. That's about as big of a knock that could scare teams, I think.
Do you see how do you envision the top part of the draft shaking out after Victor Wembanyama, of course, number 1 to the Spurs? Who do you envision going where? To Charlotte, the Blazers, if they make the pick, or potentially trading out of that pick, and then the Rockets at number 4?
Yeah, I ultimately think the Hornets take Scoot Henderson for a couple of reasons. Simply, one, he's the best talent available, and right now Charlotte's not in a position to be picky. They are in a very awkward situation because of unforeseen circumstances that just really twisted the franchise, both injuries, off-court stuff, and just a couple of the last few picks not panning out. They really need a surefire guy, and Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball can coexist. So I like that pick in Charlotte. I think Brandon Miller goes 3 to Portland, or at least 3 ultimately, whichever team that is. I think he's pretty safely 3. And at 4, I have Amen Thompson. So I think that's going to be the order of how that goes. You want me to go to 5 as well? Or
yeah, why don't we throw the Pistons a bone here?
Yeah, I think they're a tough one because for me, you could go down 3 different avenues, right? I'll make a decision, but just kind of paint the picture here. There's Jarris Walker, who is seen as the best ceiling raiser in this portion of the draft. It's not the elite guys, right? Where in Houston, he was already a winning player. He can connect the offense. He's a really good passer, outstanding defender, needs to work on his shot. That's really what it's going to come down to for Detroit, is how good is that jumper. Taylor Hendricks, pretty similar. I have Taylor Hendricks 1 spot above Jarris because he can shoot better and he protects the rim probably at the similar rate, but I think he's a little bit better defensively, by a hair. It's so tight. I think you can make the argument either way, but I think he just kind of wins out in both of those regards. And he's a good passer as well. And then the last one is Cam Whitmore, who, if you were to draw up a wing that would be a star upside, he plays defense, he's physical, he can score at all 3 levels, and he can absolutely play off ball as a shooter. And Cam Whitmore has the potential to be that. There's some polishing that needs to go into it to make that happen, but he has that realistic upside. And for me, that's why actually Cam Whitmore is probably the pick at 5.
Okay. I love Cam Whitmore. If the Rockets had fallen to 5 or 6, I would have, after getting over my initial disappointment, I would have been very excited about the thought of Cam Whitmore in a Houston Rockets jersey. Richard, it feels like every year there's maybe one prospect that seemingly jumps over a few names, or there's a team that maybe takes a bit of a reach, a bit of a gamble, if you will, on a prospect a little bit lower on the board. If there's a team that trades into that number 3 spot with the Blazers, maybe the Chicago Bulls make a play for number 3, or the Raptors get involved in some capacity. Maybe the Nets make a move with Mikal Bridges. Are there any names out there that you could see maybe making a jump and kind of breaking up that next set of 3 guys of Scoot, Miller, and Amen Thompson?
I don't think so, just because I think Scoot and Brandon and Amen, I'd say at least Scoot and Brandon Miller, they have that plug and play into every team, right? If roles were reversed in, let's just say the Lakers, for example, were picking, they wouldn't want to choose against either of those guys. Granted, the Lakers don't want playoff. Yeah, they want NBA ready guys. Both of those guys are that. They fit into every offense, every defense. I think there's so much of a universal fit there that nobody's going to shake up that top three.
What happens in the draft after Victor Wembanyama becomes a San Antonio Spur? Where should Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, and Amen Thompson ultimately go? Of course, you'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On NBA Big Board. Richard, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thank you.